Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. Every one of us in this room definitely has one thing in common. We're all getting older. But let me ask you one question. How do you evaluate the passing of time and your transition through the years? Let me share with you my perspective on an individual's lifespan and how I believe we are destined in our journey through life. For me, the analogy would be a library book. Each of us having returned to shelf days. Each chapter is a decade, with each page diarising readiness for the fate that awaits us. As last year I started a new decade, I catch myself wondering, and the next decade? I wonder what it will bring for me. For me, my novel began back in the 1960s at Marston Green Maternity Hospital, the first of 2 children to a fireman and his wife. Photos at the age of 5 show me ready for the first day at school, my dad being allowed off duty early to take the memorable shots and escort me to the school gate. I'm not sure he was more scared. Annual holidays to Pontins, Southport being the favoured location, and Christmas pantomimes with other fire brigade children. My dad always played Santa, so how could I be taught? And soon the 7 years at Linden Green Junior Infants were over. With 11 plus exams finished, Mum and Dad were left to choose the grammar school where I'd spend the next part of the decade of my life. Waverley Grammar in Small Heath was duly selected, and by September 1972 I was travelling daily on the number 17 bus. Passing the 11 plus was one thing, but getting results that pleased my dad was quite another thing. Whilst at Waverley Grammar, my dad took a different direction in the fire service and became a fire engine driving instructor. I remember cringing when he and his trainees pulled up outside the school gate to collect me in the fire engine. Why can't I go home on another 17 like my friends? With the grand total of 4 O-levels, I was often destined to a year at the Secretarial Training School at what was then called British Leyland Motor Corporation in Solihull. My dad's theory was get paid whilst learning and being trained. And that boded well, because following my training, I became an administrator for the sales department for Asia, Americas and Australasia. And following a number of company changes, I was now employed by Land Rover Limited. My second decade was drawing to a close, but my third decade had a number of significant changes written between the lines. September the 11th, 1982, and little did anyone contemplate the significance of September the 11th at that time. Excuse me, but my dad walked me down the aisle. And yes, you guessed, it was a Fire Brigade Guard of Honour. We made our home in Shirley, and our daughter Chloe, who was excess baggage from an overseas holiday, was born in 1986. I feel sure she had made in Malta stamped on her. A house move in February 1988 saw our son Stuart arrive in a packing case merely 10 days after we'd moved. He was born on the 29th of February, so I have a leap year son. Along with 2 Springer Spaniels, our family unit was complete. Some of you will remember mortgage rates at that time were at an all-time, as we thought, low of 10%. They rose rapidly to 15%, and I needed to supplement the family income. I looked for something with an element of security and a stopgap while the children were growing. 1.5 days a week for the NHS as an administrator for clinical genetics gave me that opportunity. At the same time, my dad had just completed 30 years in the fire service and retired, but he never missed the opportunity to take Chloe and Stuart for what was now the obligatory ride in the fire engine. Dad took on another venture. He became a security guard at pop concerts at the NEC. I still remember him ringing home and saying, get to the NEC quickly, come to the back door. We arrived, we hadn't even changed our clothes, Dad's words ringing in our ears. We were to go backstage at Bruce Springsteen's concert. Roger Daltrey and other people were milling around. I didn't dare ask for all I probably looked like something from the sitcom The Good Life or a stagehand dressed as I was. Another such experience was Dad was on security when Queen were on stage, my all-time favourite pop group. And it was quite a prestigious thing for Dad to be up there on the side of the stage. The concert finished, Dad marched across the stage, he collected Freddie's champagne glass from the piano and Roger Taylor's drumsticks. I thought it was all part of the job. Let's just say they were part of our lounge. My 4th decade, and with qualifications in business and finance gained at Evening College, I took on practice management in a GP practice. You'll recall Andy Warhol said in 1968 that everybody has 15 minutes of fame. Well, mine and Dad's came in 1991 with an appearance on the Generation Game. Bouncing on trampettes to pop music, a new form of gentle exercise, they said, followed by the making of marzipan ribbons, which quickly saw Dad and myself counting scores on the doors, waving a fond goodbye to Bruce and Rosemary, and collecting our generation down the phones. No challenge of remembering the cuddly toy for the two of us on the conveyor belts. Well, with the millennium came my 5th decade, and possibly the most turbulent of all to date. Things have changed, and our family became one of the statistics. How will Dad react to my impending divorce? When I moved from the family home to my new house, Dad was keen to just jet wash the patio, hop in and take the milk off the step. I didn't even have a milkman. But unsurprisingly, some 8 months later, Dad was the first person who I told that my new next door neighbour was going to be somebody who would change my life. I wasn't even sure that the new neighbour knew that at the time. Being a divorcee like myself, we soon realised that our music collection was identical. Our passion for travel, motor racing and Indian curries were one that was shared. My part-time job in the NHS was now becoming a career, and I've managed the drug action team for Birmingham and been seconded to the Department of Health on a piece of work around asylum seekers. Therefore, being offered in 2008 the opportunity to take a Masters in Healthcare Policy Manager at Birmingham University was an honour, if not a daunting one. Unsurprisingly, my dad was slightly reticent about the challenge. Perhaps he remembered the angst at days of Waverley Grammar Report with them. With the full support of my neighbour, who'd now taken on the role as partner, I completed the necessary application forms. Despite a very shaky start, I completed taught modules, and although the march just crossed the threshold of the pass, the final dissertation was underway. 10,000 words written, interviews with healthcare professionals undertaken, and my dissertation was completed, bound and ready to submit. The least I could do was posthumously dedicate it to my dad, as earlier that year his library ticket had not been renewed. And the next decade, well, I've just started my next decade, and as you'll have gathered from the previous chapters of life, my life's novel, they've been colourful with highs and lows. I still work for the NHS and manage the Community Respiratory Service for Birmingham. But with the forecast of millions to be saved, like those of you in the private sector, the lack of job security is endemic. During a recent holiday in Norway to celebrate a new decade birthday, I thought my partner had stumbled, but it soon became apparent that he was down on one knee, and hence he's now becoming a husband. The wedding is scheduled for July, and we then intend to take a year out to travel. So perhaps my stopgap when I joined the NHS 23 years ago will become my gap year. So I'll ask the question once again, and the next decade, in wondering what it will bring for me. I think I'd better check my library ticket.